Hello and welcome to Dugout Debrief. I am your host, Chris DeLuca. This is Boom Broadcasting's one, first, and only baseball-centric podcast. We are once again back talking the offseason, and we are on our final breakdown of all 30 clubs. We have two more remaining today. We got a couple other things we're going to be talking about here. Final NL West breakdown. We got the San Francisco Giants and we have the Los Angeles Dodgers. I decided I would save the best for last here on this program. Next week, we're going to go ahead and we're going to have some award predictions. We're going to do maybe a little season predictions. We'll throw a few things in there. Here between now and spring training, we're going to be just kind of doing stuff week by week. But again, if you have any feedback of what you want me to do, please put it in the comments because I'll talk about anything relating to baseball. With that being said, we got a lot of news to cover. There were a decent amount of signings here in the past week. Most notably, Pete Alonso is back on a 2-year, $54 million contract with the New York Mets. And he saw that they got guys like Juan Soto. He got his strength back. The Mets got their strength back. They also got guys like Brandon Nimmo. They got guys like Francisco Lindor. That top four lineup is probably one of the better ones in baseball next to the Dodgers. So, yeah. I mean, Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, somewhere in that combination. That's a pretty scary one. He had his second lowest home run total outside of the 2020 season in 2024 with only 34 home runs. But he did bat 240 and he played in all 162 games. That's one thing that I really will give the guy is he plays consistently. He's really not missed significant time all throughout his career. He stayed healthy, and that's really, really big these days. Like I said, they even got guys like Vientos and Winker, and it helps them out, but they still need to address the bullpen, I think, for me to be more comfortable saying that the Mets can really punch up to their weight against a team like the Dodgers. But who knows? It is a long way from October because we are only in February. So overall take on it, the short-term deal is a good deal for him. He's at age 30. You want to see how he looks. He strikes out a lot. He doesn't steal a lot of bases. He's a solid defensive first baseman, but you can afford to move him to DH if need be. I'm happy that they got him on a short-term deal. I think it was a good idea for the Mets to get him on a short-term as opposed to a long-term. That's probably why he held out so long, as he wanted a long-term. But as of right now, Alex Bregman, probably the last big guy that's holding out. And there's a lot of rumors of why he's holding out. But when he signs, we'll talk about him. Moving on, Jack Flaherty signs with the Tigers. He's back to Detroit Tigers in a 2-year, $35 million contract. Another really, really good signing. He helped out the Dodgers win that World Series here in 2024, 13-7 with a 3.17 ERA, a positive WAR between the Tigers and Dodgers. Tigers traded him to the Dodgers around the deadline, and he won a World Series. Now he wants to go back to Detroit. I think that really, really helps out that Tigers rotation, which is pretty good. Him and Skubal are going to be a very, very good 1-2 punch because like we talked about earlier and we did our AL Central breakdown, I really think the Tigers can get back to the playoffs. I think they're going to be an 85-90 win team and back in the postseason. He's consistently been a good pitcher. A lot of people kind of forget about him. He kind of got forgotten in that St. Louis St. Louis rotation, even though he was pretty much their ace, but now they're really, really searching for an ace. He also went to Baltimore, which I still forget that he played for the Orioles. And I'm also surprised that Baltimore didn't try and get him back. We've already addressed Baltimore's inactivity in this offseason. And I think that could have been a piece that they could have gone for, but they decided not to. Kenley Jansen is back in Southern California, except he's with the American League team in Southern California right now in a 1-year, $10 million deal. The vet had a mid-300s ERA since leaving the Dodgers. He led the league in saves in 2022, but he took a step back in 2023 and 2024. And that's, he's consistent. He's proven he can still be productive. And he's a veteran. He's a really, really good reliever. And especially because Carlos Estevez is gone, I think it was a good idea for them to go for him. I really do agree with that signing. I think the Angels can really benefit from his services. Jansen, I think, still has a little bit more consistency left in him. And like I said, long-term Dodger, we still love him. Speaking of Dodgers, Kike Hernandez is back with Los Angeles Dodgers, 1 year, $6.5 million. And, true locker room guy, a Swiss Army knife, because I love his personality and I love his versatility. when a middle infielder or outfielder gets hurt somewhere in the midseason, end of the season, he's going to be perfect to go move up that lineup. He's probably going to be starting on and off consistently anyway. And I think it was a really, really good job. He fits in perfectly with the Dodgers. He fits in perfectly anywhere, honestly. But he fits in really well in a good team because when the team is good, his personality is great. It's always great. But also, he can plug in for when superstars go down. So I really like that Kike Hernandez signing. Clayton Kershaw, also back with the Dodgers as well. 2 years, $10 million. The three-time Cy Young winner will be returned for his 18th season, potentially 19th, as long as he finishes out that 2-year deal. He was hurt mostly in 2024, but he's proven he can remain dominant and remain consistent. He's been good when he's been healthy, and it's really only been this year that he's really been hurt, and he adds to a stacked rotation. I mean, it's kind of crazy thinking he's gone, he was number one for a long time. Now he's probably going to be hanging around number 4 or 5, but he'll definitely still be in there. Him and Saki will be right around the same. I would still rather Kershaw have the more playing time if it was my choice, just because Kershaw, when he's healthy, he's great. And I think he knows he knows the MLB very, very well, and he can teach young pitchers. And I really want him to be a part of a World Series winning title, be healthy and be out there, and maybe even get one of those final outs. But yeah, there have been a few other notable signings here. That includes Carlos Carrasco's on a minor league deal to the New York Yankees. The Houston Astros signed Ben Gamel. The Padres signed former Pirate Connor Joe to a contract, the first baseman, outfielder, kind of jack of all trades. Cardinals signed Nick Anderson. The White Sox signed former Braves touted prospect Brandon Drury. The Yankees get Tim Hill and Tyler Matzik. Remember his 2021 World Series. He had a really good World Series with the Atlanta Braves. The Padres sign Jason Hayward. And Cal Quantrill goes to the Marlins. Drew Smith goes to the Mets. And Tyler Alexander goes to the Brewers. And finally, John Barria goes to the Detroit Tigers. He goes to the White Sox, the Tigers. And yeah, there have been a lot of overall notable signings, but obviously the big one that we're lacking here is Alex Bregman, as he still remains on the market as of Wednesday night. So since we're only talking about 2 teams here, I decided that we would do a couple conversations here. I'm going to rank bullpens, but first I really want to talk about the looming lockout, but more importantly, how these big contracts play into that. And I'm going to most notably talk about Anthony Rendon here. Angels third baseman Anthony Rendon will undergo another hip surgery. Once again, he's hurted. He is slated to miss a extended period of time. Again, we know that Rendon signed that 7-year, $245 million deal in 2020, and he's only played 257 games. And that is just inexcusable. And that's the reason why we're going to see this lockout. And it's because that's why guys like Alex Bregman are still sitting on the market. That's because owners are trying to take pay cuts because some of these players are just not motivated. And I'm not saying Anthony Rendon getting hurt is him not being motivated necessarily, but he always was the guy who just didn't want to play. He doesn't seem like he's in a hurry to get back, and I don't think he's going to be productive. I feel bad for Angels fans. I have a good friend of mine who's an Angels fan, but also I feel bad for the game of baseball because this guy's getting paid a lot of money and he's not playing. Injuries obviously do play a factor, but how much of that is actual injury and how much of that is not wanting him to play? And I think once contract disagreements really, really hit a height within the next year or two, we could definitely see a lockout in baseball, which would be really, really bad for the game, especially because it's generally struggling. I mean, we're looking back to 2020 when baseball was the last sport to really figure out what their plan was, and nobody really seemed to miss it. Nobody really seemed to care, and that's because there's not really notable guys. So you need to be pushing these high-paying guys. You need to be pushing guys like Shohei Ohtani, like Aaron Judge, like Fernando Tatis Jr., O'Neal Cruz. You need to be pushing all these guys to be at the forefront. Ellie De La Cruz, so many pieces. Even Jazz Chisholm, who may not be necessarily the best, but he's a flashy dude. And when he's good, and he brings attention to the game. You need to be pushing it. And a lockout would be really, really bad for the game, for a game that's already struggling with viewership. Especially, we're coming off the most viewed Super Bowl in history. I feel like we're breaking that record every single year. Obviously, the NBA viewership's down, but NHL is going up, soccer's getting big, and yeah, man, I really don't know. Plus, you got college sports, so a lockout would be really, really bad. That being said, we're going to go do a quick little bullpen ranking here. I just decided I'd throw that in. I'm going to go give you my top 5. And the 4, I think, are going to be pretty uncontroversial for most people, but I'm going to go have a pretty controversial one at 5 here. And I'm going to go say the Tampa Bay Rays, simply because they're led by Pete Fairbanks, who I think can become one of the best closers in baseball with how consistent he is, how cool he can be. I really like Pete Fairbanks. I like his style. I like his personality. They have Uteka. They have Garrett Clevenger, Mason Montgomery, and a few other consistent guys. I'm not necessarily going to say that they're the best. I know a lot of people will probably come at me for putting the Rays at number 5, but with Fairbanks leading the end there, give me the Rays at 5. Number 4, we got the New York Yankees, who I think if they sign like maybe one more guy, I would probably push them above the number 3 team. They got Devin Williams, obviously, from Milwaukee. Tim Hill, we just talked about, they re-signed. Leiter Jr. has got a nasty breaking ball. Ian Hamilton, Jake Cousins, Scott Efros, and Luke Weaver. That New York bullpen is pretty good. And even though it did kind of negatively affect them in the World Series, I still think it's a top 5 in baseball. Minnesota Twins, and people have them at number 1. I have them at number 3 simply because the 2 teams in front of them are just insurmountable. I got Duran, you got Jax, you got Sands, Tonkin, Varlin. A lot of good names there. They're similar to a team that we're about to mention here. While it might not be household names necessarily, it's most definitely, outside of Duran, it's most definitely a great bullpen. A lot of people have them at number 1. Griffin Jax also really, really good. Number 2, we got my favorite bullpen in baseball, one that I've talked about a lot throughout the postseason. That's the Cleveland Guardians. I mean, hey, you got Emmanuel Clase, who probably had the best regular season for a reliever in history, modern history at least. Obviously, we know how the playoffs went. We know how he really did not do very well in the playoffs. He costed the Guardians a game, crucial game with New York. But hey, still, Emmanuel Clase had the best regular season. I think he'll recover now that he's gotten a little bit more playoff experience. You can't forget about all these guys that lead up to him, like Cade Smith, Hunter Gaddis, Tim Herron, and now they got the new Paul Sewald. They got a new toy, Paul Sewald, too. So a lot of good names there. Again, not household names similar to the Twins, but good names. Good names here. And number 1, it's got to be the Dodgers. And there's just so many people in that bullpen, even outside of signing Tanner Scott. There's Tanner Scott. Michael Kopech was closing games for the White Sox, and now he's not even he's a setup guy. You got Kirby Yates that we signed, Evan Phillips, Alex Vesia, who I've always been really big on. I love his personality. I love how hyped he gets. Anthony Bonda, Michael Grove, Blake Trinan, and Kasparis. I mean, there's a lot of people there, and then you can't forget about how they're going to be doing the starting rotation too, where there's like a 7-man rotation right now. Some of those guys are going to get pushed back into the bullpen, and that's okay. So a lot of names there with the Dodgers. With that being said, that's my top 5 bullpens. If you have any other opinion, go ahead and shoot that at me. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it in the comments. So without further ado, it is time for our NL West breakdown. We are finishing up on the Dodgers. So number 29 of 30 of the teams we are breaking down are the San Francisco Giants, the Dodgers' rival. What do they have? Well, they have Willy Adames they just signed. They locked him down. They have Matt Chapman, who I've always been really big on since his Oakland days. Tyler Fitzgerald, another guy, had a great year last year. Very consistent hitter, fast guy, exactly what they need. Logan Webb, who did have a down year, but I think he's due for a bounce back year. Keep an eye out for him in my award predictions show. By the way, next week, we might be talking a little bit Logan Webb in one of those awards. Justin Verlander, another piece that they signed. Mike Yastrzemski, who did have a down year, but he's still very, very consistently good. Heliot Ramos, who sneakily had a very good year. We'll be talking about him in a second. And Robbie Ray, a new guy as well. They added pitching, which was a good idea. That's what they needed, that they addressed it. They had Logan Webb, and that was pretty much nothing after that. And then they added some other names. That's important. Not too many big names, but they don't particularly need that to win. I mean, honestly, they don't really particularly need that to win. If you go back, you look at their 2021, how they won with all those guys, Donovan Solano, Steven Duggar, Anthony DeSclafani, not huge guys, household names. With 24 ranked farm system, that is one thing that is concerning with this team. I mean, Bryce Elridge is their only top 100. That's something that Giants fans should be worried about, is with that farm system. They really should be trying to build up on that through the draft, through trades. And the bright side is if one of these older guys gets really good, such as a guy like Justin Verlander or Robbie Ray, you can trade him for a few prospects to a team that's really contending. If you're not in a position where you're contending, if you are in a position where you're contending, then keep him. So that was a good move. I think it was a really good idea, because who knows, Verlander, we obviously know how good he can be, how good he has been. He can catch lightning in a bottle, and boom, there you go. If you're not contending, but you got him, boom, there you go. Ship them off, build up that farm system, trying to get a few more top 100s. Relief pitching is what they need, mostly like everybody else. I mean, this is I'm about to say back-to-back things that you just assume for every single breakdown that I've done of all 29 of 30 teams so far. And then the next thing you can always assume is go for Nick Pivetta. I don't know why nobody's gone for him. Nick Pivetta is always on my list. He would be a good number 4, number 3 guy for that rotation. John Means still on the market, through a no-hitter, WVU alumni. Brendan Rodgers also still on the market. He'd be a good middle infielder to replace the San Francisco legend Brandon Crawford, who never looked right in a Cardinals jersey. I wish he would have retired with the Giants just for their sake. But hey, man, I'm not a Giants fan. I'm about the opposite of a Giants fan, but we don't throw shade here. Overall, I say just address things slowly. You're going to win games. They're trying to win games, and they're going to win games. They're going to do better than I'm sure that they're projected. I don't even look, by the way, for this, ladies and gentlemen, I never look what they're projected. I have not at all. For none of the clubs I've broken down have I looked at their actual projection. This has just been me looking at their projected lineup and just kind of adding the WAR together, and also just making up numbers. That's really about it. So take it for what it is. But who knows? It could be right. It could be wrong. We'll see. 2024, 80, 82, a step back. Overall, guys like Logan Webb took a step back. We talked about him before. He really needed to step up, and he really struggled this year. That breaking ball struggled, that slider struggled, but I'm sure he spent the offseason working on it. He's going to be better. I genuinely like Logan Webb too. He's a consistent guest on the Rose Rotation, which is a podcast that I do fancy. I do listen to a lot of times on my way to work. And I do like him. He's just a down-to-earth kind of guy. And the dedication that he has for the game, for his organization, wanting to be a Giant for the rest of his life, I admire it. I love it. Most of their guys are consistent. Matt Chapman's one of the best defensive infielders in the game, probably their best offensive player. He was statistically, and don't forget that Heliot Ramos hit 20 home runs this year. Mike Yastrzemski even hit 18. And Yastrzemski is not really a guy you really picture as a home run guy. You picture him more as just a really good glove in the outfield. But him and Heliot Ramos really contributed to a lot. Matt Chapman had a really good year. And if you add those guys like Willy Adames, he can continue to catch lightning in a bottle. You can win a few more games. So what I think their 2025 is going to be like, I think that they could be like 2021. I also think that it's going to be really, really, really hard. They're in a lot worse shape with the division than they were previously. Dodgers built up a lot. Padres continuing to build up a lot. And you can't forget about those hard teams in the National League in general. National League is much more balanced than the American League. I think they're going to be about the same, maybe slightly better, because I think adding guys like Willy Adames and Justin Verlander are going to add a lot more spark to that team. I'm going to say 85-77. They will take series from the Dodgers. They will take series from the Padres, especially early on. I could definitely see them taking 3 of 4 from San Diego or Los Angeles early in the year or late in the year. I could see them playing spoiler. I could even see them sneaking into a wild card. The only issue is I think that it's just going to be too darn hard with that division. And especially with teams in other divisions like the Cubs building up, potentially being a playoff team. Obviously, the Brewers, the Cubs, St. Louis will always hang out around there. They're not going to be terrible. And then, man, you got that NL East too, where you're going to have at least 2 to 3 playoff teams out of there. It's just going to be so hard, because you're thinking about it now. They're one of those teams going to be right in the fringe, because you got the Phillies, Braves, and Mets, who could all win that division. Probably two of them are going to make the playoffs. The two others, whoever doesn't win the division, Dodgers, Padres, that's three right there. Milwaukee wins the Central, or Chicago wins the Central, whoever takes that. Boom, there you go. It's already set. You're going to be sitting there and you're like, we're so close, but we're so far. I feel like it's a situation San Francisco is going to be in. So I'm going to say confidently that they do miss the playoffs, but they're one of the last teams to be eliminated from the wild card. Not necessarily the division, because the NL Central is going to be the NL Central. No shade at it. But it's just a really hard, it's very well balanced. I'm not saying it's bad in any means, but it's very well balanced. And it's like the AL Central, which is very, very good, but also very, very balanced. But the American League is much more top heavy. But yeah, I'm going to say that three teams out of the East, two teams out of the West, one out of the Central. I just think it's going to be San Diego, not San Francisco. So, wow, that's about it for the Giants. I can't really think of much else to talk about with them. I still think they made the right moves, and I think that they're going to improve. Like I said, 85, 77. But moving on to club number 30. We are on 30 of 30 here, not the ESPN kind, but they should be making a 30 for 30 about the Los Angeles Dodgers, the 2024 World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. And this will be the final team that we will be talking about on our club breakdown here. What do the Dodgers have? What do the Dodgers have? Well, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Blake Snell, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Yamamoto, Teoscar Hernandez, they re-signed. I love that. Tommy Edmonds still there. Max Muncy, Michael Conforto, also love that signing. Evan Phillips, Michael Kopech, Tyler Glasnow, Sung Kim, Dustin May, Evan Phillips, Vesio. We already talked about the pitching. Look, there's a lot of hype around this. Some of these guys are going to get hurt. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of things to talk about with this lineup, with how good it is. I don't think that they're going to be crazy. We'll get to the prediction at the end here. I don't think that they're going to be crazy breaking the records. I don't think they're going to win 115, 120 games. I don't think they're going to break the Mariners record. And to be honest with you, I don't want them to. And I'll get to that later. But I think we have what we need. There are still some things I would love us to go for. I don't really know what to say here. Pitching as always. Daniel Bard is still there, former Rockies reliever. I'd love to go for him. Anthony DeSclafani is still there. And of course, Nick Pivetta. I would love to see Nick Pivetta just add to that bullpen, add to that number one bullpen, at least on the dugout debrief rankings of the number one bullpen. And a few other people have Dodgers at number one. I've kind of seen it bouncing between the Dodgers and the Twins. I'm putting us personally at one just because of the amount of closers that we have. We basically have three closers on the team, which I love. I do think we're set, but never take your foot off the gas. And that's kind of been the big issue with this team, is taking the foot off the gas. The way that we won in 2024 is we never took the foot off the gas. Even with our backs up against the wall, against a better on paper Padres team, we still went and pushed with that three-man rotation we were running. We ran it with that bullpen. We lost a few of those guys in the bullpen, like Caleb Ferguson. We gained a few, we lost a few. Their 2024 is a World Series championship. It was great. We went 98 and 64 with a banged up rotation. Like I said, three-man playing against a better on paper Padres team, a team that I went on record on Dugout Debrief and Out of Pocket and said that they will defeat us. And I was wrong. That was the happiest I ever was. I was wrong. I didn't think it would be the year, but it was the year. We got the World Series. It was one of the best sports moments of my life. It was really, really nice to finally put that 2020, stigma to bed. All the things that people said, how it didn't count, and we did it with way more adversity, because we did it with adversity both times. First time we did it during a very, very bad outside circumstances, and players were isolated from their families, and it was really hard for everyone. On a shortened season with no spring training, no offseason workouts, no nothing. Nobody got cohesive, no nothing. Second time we won it, running a three-man rotation, going against the best team statistically in the National League, going against a Cinderella team, and then going against the best team in the American League. You can't get much better than that. I love it. My 2024, 10 out of 10, 100 of 100. best baseball season I've ever seen. I love 2024. Let's repeat it in 2025. What do I think 2025 is going to go like? Well, we're compensating for the injuries, which is a good idea. People are going to get hurt. It's part of baseball. Dodgers kind of have bad luck with that historically. That's why I think we went for these guys. I really do love it. That's why we went for these bullpen guys, especially these guys that can step into starting rotations. We do the bullpen game, and we might end up having to do that in the regular season. We might not. Who knows? But we got the pieces for it. I really, really like it. This hype can go either way. You have to realize that the LA media is its own thing. That's a whole other factor. All of the signings, all of the pressure is on these guys because there are so many great names right next to each other. And everybody wants you to repeat. And every single team wants to see us not repeat. Every single fan base outside of us wants to see us not repeat. And that's a lot to prove. That's what it is. A lot of people are putting the Dodgers in the same category as teams like the Chiefs and the Patriots, and I can't agree with that. I really can't because, we're not that far away from losing 2 straight World Series, being embarrassed by the Washington Nationals, the NLDS, embarrassed by the San Diego Padres, embarrassed by Atlanta Braves, embarrassed by the Arizona Diamondbacks on the playoffs. This one World Series is big. If we want to build a dynasty, we cannot take the foot off the gas. We need to keep pushing, pushing, and pushing. I feel more pressure now than ever. Even after all the aforementioned playoff failures, I feel more pressure after this World Series win because, yes, while the pressure's off the chest, I think it's back even harder now that we're back here. We're about to hit spring training, as pitchers and catchers have reported, by the way. Woo. So, what's my prediction for the Los Angeles Dodgers for the number 30 team of 30 that we will be covering here on Dugout Debrief before our word prediction show next week? I'm going to say 105-57. No record for wins. I don't want one. I just want another ring. Because so many teams that have set records have lost. The only team that I can think of that set a top 5 win record that won the World Series in the modern era was 2000 New York Yankees. So not a record I want. I don't want to repeat what happened to the Mariners. Do I think the Dodgers will win the World Series? We're going to save that for later. We're going to go be doing a little bit of playoff predictions later in the year as we're more formed. Because there's going to be teams that are going to start really hot. As I always say, baseball is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not like the NFL. It's not like the NBA. It's not like the NHL. It's totally different. There's 162 games. Out of 162, I have the Dodgers going 105-57. I'm excited for this offseason to come to an end. I've been itching for baseball to come back. We are in the dark times now, ladies and gentlemen. Between the Super Bowl and baseball starting, we have about a dark month-ish, not even. We got March Madness coming up. We're good. We got March Madness coming up here in about 3 weeks, so we'll be all right. And with that being said, we got one more thing to cover before we get out of here. We got our trivia question of the week. So last week, who is the last player to hit 400? I'll give you one more second to think about it. Who was the last player to hit 400? And it was the legend himself, Ted Williams in 1941. World War II vet Ted Williams. No player has got a hit at least 40 times out of every at-bat. That's 400. Since World War II. So just let that sink in about how hard baseball is, going back to my point a couple moments ago about it being a marathon, not a sprint. Nobody gets a base hit 40% of the time. Single, double, triple, home run. Since Ted Williams in 1941. I think that's crazy. So this week, we're going to go and have a kind of simpler question. I think you guys will be able to get this one pretty easily. I hope at least. What is the only number to be retired across all of baseball? And there's only one. And there's been talks that they could do one other one or two other ones or retire a name or something like that. But there's only one number retired all across baseball. And if you just look at any park and the retired numbers, it'll always be up there. All 30 teams. But ladies and gentlemen, we have covered all 30 teams. And as I said, we are kind of in the sad times here. All we got to watch is hockey and college basketball and the NBA, but there's nothing wrong with that because you can watch Three from Deep and watch NBA coverage with the man himself, Jason, We are on the Gridiron Address this week. We are on Out of Pocket recently. Make sure to tune into Out of Pocket. We did back-to-back Gridiron Addresses. We did a Super Bowl preview, which broke the views record for the Gridiron Address with my man, Aaron Schneider. Mouthing Off with Mike was there. Jason was there. So many people go on that show. The next day, it was Jason, Aaron, and I. We did our review. Make sure to tune into everything on this show. We got It Stinks. We got movie breakdowns, TV breakdowns. We got so much. Football season's over, but that doesn't mean Boom Broadcasting's over. I want to once again thank you for tuning in to Dugout Debrief. It will be back again next week. We'll be doing some award predictions. We'll be talking a little bit more. Maybe Alex Bregman will sign by then. Maybe we'll have some updates on Anthony Rendon. Maybe we'll have more updates on everything. That's what I'm hoping for. Pitchers and catchers have reported, ladies and gentlemen. I want to see you next week. Make sure to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. See you later.